Good evening, everyone. Would like to call this meeting to order at approximately 7:01 of the Union County Planning Board of January the 5th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Our first act that we want to do is ask everybody to please stand, bow your heads or whatever your religious beliefs are for a moment of reflection. Thank you. I'd like to ask Jonathan Thomas to lead us in praise, or Louis. Go ahead, Louis. I'm sorry, it's my fault.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Lee, I believe we've got 5 voting members.
Yes, sir.
We're in good shape there, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have enough for a quorum to vote on these items today. You have the agenda in front of you. Is there anybody that needs any additions or deletions, recommendations on the agenda? Okay. If there's no objections, then vote to accept the agenda as presented. Those in favor say aye. 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 Right hand. Like sign for no. Carries. You have also the the October 2020 minutes that you received in the mail. Would ask for any comments be made on changes or additions and deletions of any kind. Are there any of those that need to be made at this time? Would ask a motion. Move to accept the minutes as presented. Okay, Charlie, move to accept it as presented. Thank you. Do we have a second? Jonathan, thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, first item of business tonight is item number 6, the rezoning request, CZ 2020003, Cusperson Road. Lay your own. Thank you for being here. And I also want to thank everybody else for being here tonight, for those of you in the audience that are going to speak, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item initially came to the planning board back in the summer and ultimately went to the Board of County Commissioners, where it was approved 4-1. The planning board also recommended approval of this item in the summertime by a vote of 4-2. This is the Cuthbertson Road rezoning request. If you'll recall, the south side, which is kind of on the left side of your screen there, is the age-restricted portion, and then the right side are townhomes. This is the same plan that was presented to the Planning Board and Board of Commissioners back in the summer. When the Board of Commissioners made the motion and approved this, was about a 6-acre tract, a 6.09 acres was not in the motion. It was an inadvertent error, but unfortunately it was left out. We've talked to legal staff, and we felt the cleanest way to handle this was to bring this particular 6-acre piece back through the process to come to the planning board and then ultimately go to the Board of County Commissioners. The larger piece of this, so that the age-restricted side and the rest of this, I guess you can see kind of above that 6-acre piece, was rezoned, so that can be built as it's shown, but the 6-acre piece was not. Again, the planning board back in the summer recommended approval of this by a vote of 4-2, and then the Board of Commissioners ultimately approved that request by a vote of 4-1. I can go through the whole presentation. That's the extent of what the applicant is asking for tonight. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions for Lee or concerns or anything?
And I will say the applicant is here. In case I don't think the applicant's has prepared a presentation, but the applicant is here if you have any questions for the applicant.
A question for you,
Yeah,
Mr. Jensen.
sure.
So this is just an oversight by staff, is the
Yes, sir.
understanding? Not anything
That was
from
it.
what the developers?
Right, the developer's application was correct, site plan was correct, it was just an oversight.
Okay, thank
All
you.
the requests we made the last time were put in?
Yes.
All the recommendations we,
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Last time that this came forward, there was no opposition. Nobody spoke in opposition to the request at the Board of Commissioners meeting. The only thing that was received were several letters from nearby residents, and those letters were really requesting conditions. They weren't opposed to the rezoning request. They were really requesting some conditions be placed on it, and those conditions were all placed on the application, mainly dealing with some road improvements at Newtown and Cuthbertson, some screening along the adjacent property lines, and then the construction of a portion of the Carolina Thread Trail. And all those conditions were incorporated, and they will also be incorporated in this as well.
you know, was there a request in those conditions that they have a sidewalk connected with the shopping center?
A portion of it, yes, sir.
Okay, that's still in there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion on this? To approve or to disapprove?
I'll make the motion. You know, I opposed this to begin with, but the commission and the board has spoken. Sounds like it's a clerical error. That was not the fault of the developer. So I make the motion to approve.
Okay. Jonathan's made the motion to approve as presented. Wanted to ask all those in favor, raise your right hand.
We need a second.
Pardon?
We need a second.
I need a second, excuse me, a second. Louis, got a second. Okay, thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Did you get the count?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Continuing on with item number 6, or excuse me, number 7. Okay, Lee, you want to talk about that?
Yes, sir. This is another rezoning request that came before the planning board back in the summer. I think it was back in the summer. It could have been the fall. And ultimately went to the Board of County Commissioners for public hearing and decision. When it came before the planning board, the original plan, the planning board recommended to deny it. And I think it was also by a vote of 4-2. After the original petition went through the planning board and got to the Board of County Commissioners, the developer made some significant changes to that conceptual plan that was submitted. Mainly, the developer reduced some of the density, they took out some lots, and they also provided a road access, changed the road access from Billy Howey over to Waxhaw Indian Trail. So when the Board of Commissioners went to make their decision, they decided to send this back to the planning board because they felt like the recommendation they got from the planning board was really kind of based on a different plan. The board doesn't, obviously doesn't want to, want you to make up your mind as to how you feel about it, but they just felt they needed a new recommendation because it was the plan had been altered to an extent that they felt like the recommendation they had before them probably wasn't valid, so they wanted to get this back through the process. This is a current plan. It does vary slightly from what you had in your agenda packets. I did not have this plan available when those packets went out. What's in your packet shows a connection over to Billy Howie. This shows a cul-de-sac. So the only access they're showing is off of Waxhaw Indian Trail, coming in, cul-de-sac on Billy Howie Road. It's 89 single-family units. It's age-restricted, 1 point of access, 1.9 units per acre. We have had some conversations with the developer, and I'll share some of the, I guess, slight concerns that staff has at this point with the plan that we have before us, and I've shared with the developer as well. You do have a couple of places where Waxhaw Indian Trail Road, or the entrance off of Waxhaw Indian Trail Road cuts through a lot. Still shows a lot right there. There's some things that need to be cleaned up on this conceptual plan. I think the developer wanted to go ahead and bring this to the planning board tonight. So we just had a few concerns about some of those cleanup issues.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes, sir.
There's a note here in the upper left-hand corner of this plan, alternate entry drive notes.
Yes.
I feel is very pertinent to this.
That was one of the issues that we had, so go ahead and if you want to read what that says. Unfortunately, I can't see it.
It is
on
very
my
hard to
screen.
read, and it may be hard for the folks from the public that attended to read what's on there.
It basically gives options. It says if the driveway on the Waxhaw Indian Trail Road's not approved, they can use one on the Billy Howie, and vice versa. So they would
Basically,
abandon.
should this be approved, either way, it's going in.
Right.
Whether you get what you want or whether you don't. And I think it should be noted as, point number 1 here. It has to be approved by both the NCDOT and the Wesley Oaks HOA.
Yes.
So there are some conditions, and I could tell you from my experience working with the NCDOT, that is a big if in my book.
And I have had conversations with DOT. DOT wants a right in, so they want a dedicated right turn lane and a dedicated left turn lane going into this development.
Now, the adjoining land where the easement, the proposed easement into the Wesley Oaks HOA is that within county land, or is that a town of Wesley Chapel land?
It's Wesley Chapel. I'm going to get to that in just one second.
Thank you.
Sure. So again, those are good points. I appreciate that because staff did have some concerns about those notes that were on that plan. Again, it goes to cleanup. A lot of that had to do with when there was the plan you have shows that road extending over to Billy Howie. And a lot of those notes had to do with that extension. Now that that's been cul-de-sac, a lot of those notes are kind of taken care of, but again, we need some cleanup on the plan. Not all of them, but some of them. It kind of needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, I saw the notes were still up there, so.
Yeah. Again, just some examples of the housing that was provided by the developer. These are pictures of the property from Billy Howie Road. This is the entrance to Wesley Oaks neighborhood across the street. Again, this is a donut hole, so it's surrounded by Wesley Chapel. Really on I'll say 3.5 sides, because you've got this neighborhood's kind of mixed. There's some county jurisdiction and some Wesley Chapel jurisdiction, but it's mostly a donut hole. The property's not developed, but there is a good bit of development around it. You have several subdivisions that you can see sort of surrounding the property, and just to the north is the Target shopping center at the corner of Waxhaw Indian Trail Road and Highway 84. There is a stream that runs through, I guess I'm going to call it the flagpole portion of this, over toward the Billy Howie Road side. That stream does have buffers that are required. They can cross that with a bridge as long as it's parallel. The concept plan, is consistent with that. That's the only notable environmental feature on the property. Most properties in this area are served by Union County Water and Sewer. There is water line currently along Billy Howie. There's also sewer that's across the street in the Wesley Chapel neighborhood. There's actually a manhole at the entrance to Wesley Chapel that this would tie into. And all improvements would be at the developer's expense. The zoning, for the most part in this area, is R40. This area just to the north in Wesley Chapel is R20, and I believe that was zoned that way because this was a development that was approved by Union County when this was under Union County jurisdiction that had a R20 designation. The schools that would serve this, again, this is age restricted, but we still want to send this off to the schools and get their comments. Wesley Chapel Elementary, which is at 103% of capacity, Weddington Middle, which is at 104%, and Weddington High School, which is at 91% of capacity. You do have a funded roundabout project, not necessarily at the development, but a little bit to the south at Waxhaw Indian Trail and Newtown Road. Again, it's funded, but that doesn't mean that construction's imminent. Waxhaw Indian Trail Road is a future 4-lane section with curb and gutter. Again, it's not, that's not at all even funded, no time frame on when that's going to be built. Land use plan does show this piece of property as single-family residential. You have a large community center to the north. So you have a good number of conditions here. Most of these were proposed by the developer and were in the original package. The one that we have added, well, I say we added it. It was supposed to be added. There was a condition that staff had asked for, or we added on here that said that basically number 5 says the development is subject to all applicable requirements of the Union County Development Ordinance as well as all other local, state, and federal requirements. We feel that sort of captures what we're asking for, but we wanted to spell it out specifically that there was a condition that said that entrance off of Waxhaw Indian Trail Road would not only get the approval of NCDOT and the Wesley Oaks Homeowners Association, but would get an approval or a concurrence from the town of Wesley Chapel because it does cross through their jurisdiction. Normally, DOT requires the driveway permit to be signed by the jurisdiction where that entrance is. So likely Wesley Chapel would have to sign that driveway permit, but we would also ask that a condition be added. If this was approved, we would want a condition added that said that Wesley Chapel concur or approve that entrance onto Waxhaw Indian Trail Road.
Now, maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse. I read through the paperwork, and I see Wesley Chapel has a statement that I'm sure you'll be getting to soon. One concern, because they do not seem too friendly to the idea of bringing the subdivision in. If they were to cut a driveway into this existing Wesley Oaks subdivision, does that then invalidate the zoning for Wesley Oaks? Can they not meet their minimums to qualify for that at that point? So that's another question mark.
You're talking about the common area for
Correct.
Wesley Oaks. And that's why we would want that concurrence from Wesley Chapel. So we don't want them just to look at it from the standpoint of, is this access point allowed just from an access standpoint, but we want to know, would Wesley Oaks still be in compliance with their common open space? So that was kind of the dual purpose for that condition.
Thank you.
So if I understand it, that has not been decided yet, is that right?
No, sir. No, sir.
So what are we doing? Are we voting on something that we're going to roll the dice on, not knowing which way it's going to go?
So you've got a couple of options. You could tonight say we want to, you could recommend approval of it as presented with conditions. You could recommend denial and just say there's nothing you can do. You could defer it and ask the applicant to come back with an approval from Wesley Chapel. So those are all options you have. Now, I did speak with our legal counsel today just regarding, because there are some timeframes that the board, you don't necessarily have to act within those certain timeframes, but if the board doesn't offer a recommendation within a certain timeframe, the Board of Commissioners could take up the matter without a recommendation. And that's 45 days. So And I did speak with legal counsel, and he felt that because the board did refer this back for a new recommendation, that 45 days probably would apply, which is a good thing for the planning board. So, if you did ask for a deferral, it would be on the agenda for next month.
Go over the density again.
1.98 units per acre.
And the county is 1.5, is that right?
It depends on where you are in the county. I mean, there's some areas in the county that it's way less than 1 unit per acre when you get out in Marshville and some of those areas. Around here, these neighborhoods, these were, Wesley Oaks was a county subdivision, so it was approved by Union County before Wesley Chapel incorporated. I think the majority of it. I think there may have been one small section that was approved by Wesley Chapel that's all 1 acre lots. This was what the county had in its ordinance back in 2000, the early 2000s. It was called smart growth. What you could do in the smart growth development was if you provided certain amenities in the neighborhood, you could get a density bonus of 25%. So it was R40, so you could get a 25% density bonus. So in theory, this neighborhood should be about 1.25 units per acre. It may be a little bit less than that, but I think I ran the numbers on this neighborhood and it was pretty close. This neighborhood here is going to be a little bit less or a little bit more, I'm sorry, because it was R20. But a good number of the neighborhoods around here, Silver Creek, I think was another smart growth neighborhood. So in general around this area, if you're in a subdivision, it's probably going to be about 1.25 units per acre. Of course, you do have also large pieces of property that are going to bring that overall number down. So that's probably not exactly the answer you're looking for, but.
Well, I just want to make sure we were somewhere near the guideline.
Sure, I understand.
Not way out in left field.
I understand.
We've had some of those come at us from time to time.
Right.
And all. Any other questions for Lee?
Did you say that the entrance on Waxhaw Indian Trail Road hasn't been approved yet by DOT, or has?
So what we do on rezonings is DOT won't officially approve an entrance until you get into the construction plan review and they actually have the actual construction design plans in front of them and they issue the driveway permit. But what we do on a staff level is we coordinate with DOT to make sure that they're comfortable with these locations. And from what we've heard back from DOT here locally in Monroe is that they are comfortable with this location, provided that the developer built a dedicated right turn lane in and a dedicated left turn lane in.
Lee, this is a redo. If my memory serves me correctly, there was a lot of public comment on the first one.
Yes.
Yet I see this is not the public I was seeing last time. Is there a reason why? Have they been notified?
Yes.
We put the signs up saying we got a hearing?
Sign, yeah. The sign did, I'll be honest with you, the sign did fall down. Jim and I were actually out looking at a different property, and we rode by this one, and my heart sank for a second because I didn't see the sign. So I had Jim pull over, and we went out, and we found it had fallen over. So that was before Christmas, so we put it up then. But
Well, apparently the passion is going away.
I think a few of the folks here were at the hearing last time and spoke. There may be a few that didn't come back, but I think there's probably a few.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Are they going to speak again today?
I know a number
got a
of
list
people
of
signed
people.
up on that list, so,
Again?
I've got a list of people here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah.
I'm sure COVID has had some impact on people willing to get out.
We have heard that COVID was driving some people away.
Hey, with all this mess, I can't, I see one face I recognize, but there's also a mess, I can't tell who's out there.
Lee, we have, does anybody have any questions for Lee anywhere in this? Okay. Lee, I believe you said the applicant is here.
Yes, the applicant is here.
If the applicant would like to come forward, we'd love to have him. Just introduce yourself, your address, et cetera, and I believe it's Mike Davis, right?
Correct, that is correct.
Okay, good, Mr. Davis.
memory.
Glad to have you here.
Lee, is it up here now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was.
Hopefully I don't break it. Good evening, Chairman, board members. My name is Mike Davis. I am the Director of Land Development for Epcon Communities. Our corporate address is 11,020 David Taylor Drive, Suite 105 in Charlotte, North Carolina, 28262. So, Lee, where do I pull up?
There you go.
Where is the,
Put that little arrow to the right.
right.
Right there.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, can everybody see the screen here? I also have paper copies for the board of the presentation if you'd like those as well. As I said, my name's Mike Davis. I'm glad to be back in front of you. I was here in August talking about this project, and based on feedback from the board, the commission, community, we've made substantial changes. I've got a couple of slides about us. I think I'll get to the meat of the changes so you guys can see that. This was our initial sketch. We had 115 lots. We had the entrance to the Billy Howie, which would be the right side. We had a density of 2.55, as Lee had mentioned. Now to dial into the specific changes we did. We did a lot reduction down to 89 lots, reduced by 26 lots. And as Lee said, our density is now I have 1.9, I guess our rounding is a little different. And he's at 1.98. Again, we were at 2.55. We also, based on community feedback, increased the northern buffer as well. It ranges from 70 to 40 feet, 40 feet undisturbed, and then we're still planning to do a 15-foot planted. The original version had a 25-foot undisturbed and a 10-foot planted. We also, based on the lot reduction by default, our total open space increased to 14.9 acres, 33.2 of the site, versus the prior, which was 13.1 and 28.8. We are proposing a new entrance off of Waxhaw Indian Trail Road. We, based on the community, Wesley Oaks community they were very vocal about concern with cut-through traffic on Billy Howie. We were able to meet with them, meet with the board, and now have an agreement in place for an easement for this entrance. So the Wesley Oaks HOA board is on board with us. We had several meetings with them, and I believe they had several community meetings as well. And I'll get into kind of a blow-up of that as well. Here's our proposed sketch plan. We still have, as Lee mentioned, some tweaks to do. We just recently got the agreement in place, and I didn't want to propose something unless I had an agreement in place with the HOA. So we were kind of in between finalizing that agreement, so we haven't had a chance to do the fine tuning to the sketch plan. But overall, the roads will stay the same. There'll be some reconfiguration of lots, and the clubhouse will probably relocate to a center point versus its current location. This next slide is a blow-up of our proposed entrance. We are about 1,100 feet from the current Wesley Glen Drive, which is the furthest, my right, I'm assuming it's your right as well, the furthest to the right side of the screen there. We're also about 620 feet from the stable entrance. And we've had several meetings with NCDOT, Travis Preslar, and Stan about where we check on our sight line, doing some preliminary studies, making sure from their standards we meet it. And as Lee said, we, from their perspective, from a driveway permits standpoint, they don't have any issues with it. Here's a blow-up of the, what we now have a cul-de-sac in. We're proposing no access to Billy Howie Road. As part of our discussions with Wesley Oaks, HOA and community, again, Billy Howie traffic concern was their main, I guess you could say, issue. And so we agreed that we would pull that entrance and also the emergency access. Here is a blow up the buffer based on several buffer to the northern side, which exceeds the Union County standards. We have this particular location is where we are closest, our lots are closest to the northern property line or the Wesley Glen subdivision. As you can tell, there's a 40-foot non-disturbed, and then in some cases, we are pulling those lots as far away from that property line as we can. We're still proposing that 15-foot. So in reality, there would be a 55-foot buffer of undisturbed and planted material. We also looked in a traffic comparison if let's say the owners or a developer came in and looked at by right. So under the current zoning of the R40, you would approximately get 49 lots. If you look at the ITE manual, which is the graph below, if you take a single family, typical single family detached, 49 lots, it generates 540 trips per day. If you look at the senior adult housing, which is what we are, is age restricted, at 89 lots, that would generate 508. So again, that's 32 fewer trips per day with our plan. I mentioned this in our August meeting, and that demographics shows there is a need and is continuing to grow. We do have an aging population, as you can see, from 2010 to 2020, the 55 older population almost doubled. And this is, I believe, a 3-mile radius of our site. When a lot of planning boards, commissions, council look at any community or project, its impact. And one way to measure that is if you look at people in the community. So if you take a typical single-family household, has 3.8 people per home based on current demographics, and if you take the age-restricted to 1.7 people per home, below as an example, if you took the by right plan, you have 49 lots times the 3.8 people, that's 189.1 people within the community. You take our age restricted at 89 lots times the 1.7 people per home, that is 151.3. Again, it's less impact. And so if you look at an owner or developer come in and develop this property by right, we would still have less impact from a service people standpoint. And that's a good way to measure impact. This is the backup where we take demographics, and you'll see highlighted the average family size, 3.8 within that 3.86 within a 1-mile radius. This is a picture of our product. Again, you've probably seen this. We currently have a project off of Cuthbertson Road, the courtyards at Wesley Chapel. We actually are, I think, down to about 12 to 10 lots, so it's selling very well. This shows an aerial view of our rear yard, which is unique in our product. At the rear of the homes, you see, I don't know, there it is. There's a fence, 6-foot privacy fence here. and up front is a 4-foot black aluminum picket. That area between the homes is the homeowner's area. That's that area to have a grill, patio. We even have some folks have artificial turf. It's quite interesting what people do. And what's unique is that the HOA maintains all the rear and all the front yards. So the homeowner can literally lock the door, walk away, and it's maintained. And that's what's different with our product, in that the rear yard is passive, so any perimeter properties will never have swing sets, anything out the back, because everything is kept within the courtyard. Benefits. Our communities provide a good tax revenue for the town, county, and schools with a high real estate base and low cost per household. We're currently averaging in the Charlotte market, average price of $450,000. That's over $200 per square foot. We use high-quality architectural features, floor plans designed specifically for 55 plus with painted year 50-year siding, cultured stone brick accents, in a variety of elevations, and also a 30-year architectural shingles. Our buyers, homeowners, support their local businesses, restaurants, and services nearby, and also the 55-plus demographic typically donates more time and money towards charities and community events. And one point I'd like to make out about density, in the original staff report, I think Lee had mentioned a 1.5 recommendation. So we believe at 1.9, yes, from a density standpoint is higher, but from an impact, it's less. And again, as they say, not all density is the same. So I'm open to any questions and here to answer anybody's concerns or specific.
Mr. Davis, I'd like to ask you a question. Can you go back to your Ezra page?
Which page?
The Ezra data, population.
This one?
Yes.
Yes.
Question I've got is, did you look at not only the market profile here for population, but did you look at the median income by age group?
Typically, it comes in our report. In this specific area, it's very high. It's one of the Wesley Chapel area, Weddington, is very high from a personal income and price of homes and those types of things. I don't remember it specifically where it was. I don't think, no. But it was.
I would just make a recommendation, strictly a recommendation for you
Yes,
to think
sir.
about. But it might be wise that you put that figure in here, because you're quoting, they're going to support 55 and up local businesses and things of this nature.
Yes, sir.
Using restaurants as an example. Well, a lot of people 55 and up are really social distancing.
Especially, yes, that aspect has changed a little
In
bit.
fact, the 29th is the first time that my wife and I, the 29th of December, because it was our anniversary, is the first time we've been out of the house since March to eat in a restaurant.
It is a very unique and
It is. It's a
time,
unique
I guess
time.
is the best
But
way.
I think you need to take a look at that and maybe just say, hey, we realize we're in a unique time, et cetera.
Yes.
And things, because you can gloss it over, but we got to be in reality here.
Right,
I'm not
'cause it-
criticizing.
No, I get it
I'm
completely because
giving
it's
you a
changed.
recommendation
Yeah,
that, being an ex-retailer, I would want to look at.
yes,
So, okay.
yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Davis?
I got a question.
Sure.
Can you go back to the slide where you have your overview? It's got that blue umbrella,
Oh,
that one.
yes, sir,
Now, that blue umbrella, that's on a patio.
correct.
And then is that grass that's next to it?
Typically, it's a mulch.
Okay, and then how far does that homeowner's property go to that next owner? To those bushes?
No, it's actually falls in between the house. the way our covenants are set up is there is what we call a benefited lot, benefited easement. So if you take the one home on the left or right, they have benefit of the joining, and of course, the next house has the benefit of the next. So the covenants are set up where there's an easement across property lines. It's unique.
He's got a good question. Did
So
y'all
if you
take
go through that
yard
gate-
and dip it down to where water runs between it?
Yes, but typically in our communities, we actually install a yard drain. In this particular one, well, let me back up. For the one we're posing now, the distance between the house is quite larger than what you see here, because the lots that we were proposing, I think, are 59 to 60 feet wide. This one is 54 feet wide. So in this particular instance, there's about 10 feet, 11 feet between the houses. In the one we're proposing, the courtyards at Howie Farm, there'll be about 15, which is similar to the courtyards at Wesley Chapel, where there's 15 feet between the houses. But in most cases, we do install drains between the house so that they can, because a lot of people do different things within their courtyard.
So that fence that's on front, that's a gate? to go
Yes,
through?
it's a gate,
So if you're walking through that, you're right down the middle of the property line, right there.
correct.
But yet you can
Yes.
put furniture and stuff on the other side of that.
Yes, you just can't attach something to the house adjoining. So you can do.
Because like I'm looking at the one behind the blue umbrella, and looks like they got chairs and stuff almost right up against the other house.
Yes. It's not uncommon for people to use the entire area. And we've built these this same way specifically in the Charlotte market since 2013. But Epcot has been building for the aging population for 34 years. So this is what we do.
Okay. Question for Lee. Age restricted as opposed to age targeted. Age restricted is 55 and up. Is that the 80-20
Yes. That's the 80-20 that the county is,
recommends?
yes, that's the 80-20 that the county is going to have a restriction on with the conditions. Now, if they want to go above and beyond that, that could be something they could handle through the covenants, but the condition would be 80-20.
Yeah, and that is actually established under the Fair Housing Act under HOPA. Which in December of 1995 was passed, which is the Housing for Older Persons. Under HOPA, a community is allowed to restrict the units to be occupied or owned with at least one member being 55 or older. It requires at least 80% of the community or homes units meet the above or meet that standard. Annual surveys must be taken to adhere to the guidelines, and of course, these requirements must be deeded and/or in the covenants, must be tied to that property.
Now, who's the enforcement mechanism for that?
Well, it's required under the HUD and so forth, so.
Correct. Is the county going to confirm this? Is our federal authorities going to do that, or is this the jurisdiction of the HOA?
Well, typically, the property managers are required. For example, for the Village of Wesley Chapel, the HOA provides annual updates, survey, whatever data they need to keep record that we are meeting that standard of 80%.
And we would treat that the same way. We would ask for a report to show that they meet that 80-20. So it's kind of a dual
Mhm.
enforcement. We could enforce it if they fell below, the 80, or the HOA could enforce it as well.
And that's something the county checks on an annual basis?
Yeah, we don't have any that are actually built out yet, but once they are, that's one thing that's in those conditions is that we can ask for that report.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. We get into the supply versus demand that's in there, and obviously there is a boom in growth of that age bracket. But Crestman, for example, is recently approved development of 600-plus homes, high density, similar concept, all age restricted. Lee, how many, and I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask for an exact number, but approximately how many units do we have currently, not township jurisdiction, just county jurisdiction, that are approved but not built, that are age restricted?
We have Crestwinds, there's the Epcon community on Allen Black Road, but only 14 of those lots are in the county. And then there's the one on Cuthbertson Road, which was,
Actually falls in the village.
no,
Oh, never mind, yes.
there's another one on Cuthbertson
Yep.
Road that's it's almost 300, somewhere around 300 lots, so.
So how many units roughly?
Close to 1,000 probably.
So,
But that doesn't include any of the towns, so.
correct, so we're excluding a number of towns, other jurisdictions. This is just county-wise, you have more, so or roughly 1,000 units that are approved but unbuilt at this point in this demographic.
And I'm sure that number is probably, there's probably something I'm forgetting as well.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions for
What-
Mr. Davis?
What
Yes.
size are these houses?
They range from 1,500 square foot up to 3,000.
And they're all like ranch style?
Yes, sir. Well, the way they're considered story and a half because we don't add a second floor. The bonus area is within the roof, so we don't get into a two-story home in any of our product.
How many bedrooms?
It typically standards 2, but you can get 3 to even sometimes 4, depending on how they arrange the options. But typically, we're at 2 bedrooms. Yes, sir.
It's unclear to me what recourse you have. You have 80% of community homes must meet the standard of one home being 55 or older. Say, good for instance, say, I was his daddy, we lived together, and I died, and he still got the house. But we fell below 80, got our block to the same thing. If you fall below the 80%, exactly what recourse do you have and to whom to get this thing back where it's supposed to be? Or you just say, oh man, gee, we tried our best, we can't do it.
No, it's pretty strict. And now, the legal terms, I'm not sure, but you have to maintain, so if it is passed down, then they would have to sell it.
Okay, so in other words, the first person who breaks 80, he is by law, has to put that thing on the market to be sold.
Yeah, because you have to maintain that 80%.
I see.
Now, we average in our community 67. So it's very rarely do we see that come up, but not saying it hasn't happened somewhere.
But you're being put up for sale doesn't mean it's gonna sell. If it was me and I want to stay there, so yeah, I want $247,000 for this little property here. Yeah, you mind, nobody will buy that. Well, then, hey, I follow the rules, I'll put it up for sale. But what I'm getting at is I can see a million ways to beat this thing and have that community fall back down to a regular community with no matter what they're looking for, there's no real recourse.
Well,
One guy said, hey, this is gonna happen to you, you sue you, we do this, we do that, we take your property away. I see no real recourse to enforce this 80%.
Well,
Make it happen for sure.
I'm not an attorney, but I know, this law's been passed in 1995, and so it's maintained. All our communities have been built this way, and that hasn't come up, to my knowledge, as being an issue falling below the 80%. That's why you have 80%, because it does allow that 20% to be under 55, or at least one member.
Mike, would you like me to speak to that?
Sure you can. This is Bob Cardos, our division president, so.
Okay.
Would you like me to come up to speak to that question?
Yeah, please, please.
Good evening. I'm Bob Cardos. I'm the regional president for Epcon Communities here in Charlotte. To answer your question, historically, in the 13 years that we've been here in the market, we have not dropped even close to 90% or below that point. Our average age buyer, as Mike alluded to, is 67 years old for the older spouse, and for the younger, 62. So we're well over the 55 mark, and percentage-wise, in most of our communities, we're over 95% meeting that criteria. In some municipalities, we have agreed to go to a 90%. The hope of regulation is 80. We feel very confident that we won't drop below 90, let alone get to the 80% rule. But to answer your question, the HOA has to do those annual audits. The homeowners have to supply the information on the age of the residents that are living within that home. If they were getting close to that, before they drop below that, the HOA typically would send out a notice identifying that the community is getting close to that particular guideline, and any agreements for leasing the property or subleasing the property have to be approved per our covenants by the HOA board. So that controls somebody selling the property to somebody younger.
All right. I understand, yes. That does give you some control.
That's right. And in regards to a death of a spouse or something like that, again, we're not falling below the 90% historically, and we could provide that historical data for all the communities that we've had here in Charlotte. So we feel very comfortable that we maintain well above that 80% average.
You do have recourse, that's what I'm looking for.
That's correct.
You do have recourse. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Question real quick.
Sure.
Either one of you gentlemen. Right now, you're seeing this increase essentially due to the baby boomers, correct?
That is the major drive, yes.
So we knew that it's going to be essentially inflated because you're going to have that huge demand. The population beyond the baby boomers tapers back down to a more reasonable level. So I guess my question is, what's going to happen to all these houses here in 20 years or so when that generation is dwindling and you've got a glut of houses that are restricted to a certain age group and you don't have the population physically to fill them and meet the guidelines?
Obviously, I don't know what the future has, but I can tell you EPCON has been building in Columbus, Ohio for 34 years, and they continue to build new communities just down from new communities they completed 20 years ago. So again, we don't see any market change. I think Charlotte in this area is even more, I guess you could say prime, because there are a lot of people moving here and a lot of families because of jobs, and then their parents or grandparents or whoever are coming to this area. And so we do see some purchases from out of state because of family.
So what liability does EPCON have once the neighborhood's built out? And I assume it's a situation where while the neighborhood is in development, EPCON retains 51 or greater % of control of the HOA. When the final house is sold, is turned over to the residents. At that point, should there be a violation, does EPCON even have any liability, or are you guys down the road?
When you say violation, what do you?
So say, for example, you build this neighborhood out in 3 years, and you essentially turn over to the residents. Well,
Right.
say in 10 years, they're not able to, no one's able to maintain these 80% numbers for whatever reason. Say the population dies off, COVID, who knows?
Yeah, I'll speak to that because as the regional president, I'm more familiar with the statistics in regards to the stats of the demographics versus Mike on the land side. But right now, the 55 plus is projected to continue growth for the next 20 years before they see a leveling off. Right now, percentage-wise, for us to go into a particular community, we look for a market within a 3-mile radius of 3,500 plus 55 or older individuals. For a community that we're looking to build only 89. So even when you look at the other communities that are within Union County, if you look at the total number of 55 plus, it is still a very small percentage. The 55 plus on a percentage basis is the most underserved market right now in housing. The other thing that's interesting in regards to community features, and I guess 20 or 30 years from now, if demographics change, municipalities may decide to adopt other guidelines or ordinances if they want to attract other demographics within their community. this product is very attractive to young professionals as well. Ultimately, that would be a decision by a municipality. I don't think you're going to have a situation where you're going to have large number of vacant homes. They're saying right now there's almost a 7 million home shortage in the U.S. In regards to housing. That right now they're projecting within the U.S. we're going to be just over $1 million or 1 million homes being built for 2021. They're saying that we'd have to be at 2 million plus for the next 6 years just to get caught up with the demand in regards to the growing number of individuals coming to the market, especially a market like Charlotte, which is in the top 3 in the nation. So I don't see any foreseen issue with one for the next 20 years just to even catch up to meeting the market, let alone probably another 10 or 20 before there's any concern related to a shortage on that. And at that point, certainly there could be adjustments in regards to the criteria that the municipality may impose on that particular property in order to keep the homes vacant. But I think you have that challenge with any product, whether you're designing product for millennials, young professionals, move-down buyers. Demographics are going to change over a period of time, and there needs to be adjustments over that period of time to serve those individual changes.
I don't disagree that the need for housing is high. You mentioned reappropriating in the future. My concern is not vacant homes, but rather homes with a bunch of school children, because that drives up the need for the tax dollars significantly. So that would be my larger concern. Obviously, with the virus and people fleeing the urban areas, your position as a home builder in the suburbs is fairly enviable.
Yeah, certainly I think there'd be plenty of time to observe that change in the demographics and to react accordingly. I think for at least the next 20 to 30 years, there's not going to be an issue with the 55-plus demographic to be able to fill those voids for any homes that become vacant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Team.
Any other questions, Mr. Davis? You reserve the right to call you back.
Absolutely, I'll be here. Thank you.
Your new entrance that's coming in off of Waxhaw Indian Trail Road,
Yes, sir.
you're going to be moving 4 lots?
Yes.
Where are you moving them to on site?
We have some, let me go up. We have some area on the south side, and where's the cursor? I can't find it. There, well, on the south side, we have some other opportunities, and then reorient them. We can turn them as well on our property. So on the south side, we would add some lots there next to the BMP on the south side. So there it is. Oh, I can't get the cursor. Where did it go? There it is. It moves. But along this area here is where we'd move them to.
So the BMP wouldn't be as big? You'd make it smaller?
No, if you see the dotted line, we have already accounted for that. If you can see, there's a dotted line right here and right here. We've made sure that the BMP size will satisfy all stormwater requirements for the project.
Okay, now what about 26 through 30? Lots 26 through 30, you're going to readjust them. What do you mean by readjusting them? Because you're going to put the stub out through 30.
Right. Yes.
So
Now,
that
we may turn those 2 lots on either side, or we may keep them the same. Again, this was very
so
preliminary.
You may lose one. You may lose one then.
No, we'd add it to the south side. Because right now, we don't have any lots here down on the bottom, next to the BMP on the right and left of it. So we would add it there. Anything else?
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Do you want me to leave a?
That's fine.
Okay.
As a point of interest, Jonathan, the this is trivia if you want to call it that, it has nothing to do with this hearing, other than the mill that was bought out and developed supposedly for young professionals in Waxhaw, it's over 70%, 55 and above, living in those apartments, believe it or not.
I believe that
It was hard, nobody
you
thought it.
wouldn't want to be a young professional and commute in on 16 every day.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we have some people here in the audience that want to speak. Lee, you had mentioned that the acting mayor of Wesley Chapel was wanting to speak. Is that person here?
I did speak to Ms. Fuller today, and she said either she or someone else will likely be here from Wesley Chapel. They may have signed in. I don't see Ms. Fuller here.
Okay, thank you. Next person in line to speak is Mike, is it Como?
Yes, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher, members of the planning board. My name is Mike Como. I live at 1104 Highbrook Drive in Silver Creek, and I'm a member of the town council for Wesley Chapel. I also have another
Were you authorized to speak?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay.
We also have another gentleman here from town council, David Boyce, who will be speaking later on this evening.
Okay.
I'd like to start off by telling you a short story that I think is relative here. Years ago, I got a chance to work with some teenagers at a local high school running a soccer program. A friend of mine and I were coaching the kids, and by the end of the summer, we had the opportunity to host a little tournament for our area. So I went to the principal of the school and said, we're going to be hosting a tournament, and he was very proud of that. I said, I need 20 new soccer balls for this tournament. And he said, whoa, those things are $30 a piece. I don't know if the school can afford that. I said, come on. We sat there and we argued for 15, 20 minutes. My friend and I were in his office. We hemmed and hawed for a little while, and eventually the principal looked at me and said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 12. As we were leaving the meeting, I was all smiles. My buddy looked at me and said, why are you smiling? You only got 12 soccer balls. He said, I only needed 10. So why is that relative to this plan? Originally, it was 115 homes. Now it's only 89. Originally, the setbacks were only going to be 15 feet. Now they're more than 15 feet. It may look like the developer has made a lot of revisions and a lot of changes, but they really kind of haven't. It's still high density. When you originally voted this down months ago, it was mainly, I believe, because of the density. Because it was inconsistent with the area was the statement that I heard or remember hearing the most. So you've already made the recommendation, not based on whether the road is going out this way or whether the road's going out that way. You made the negative recommendation based on the density. So I would hope that you would remember that when you go to make your final vote. The fact that this is a donut hole, this is not on the edge of Wesley Chapel, as some of the other developments in the past have been. This is dab smack in the middle of Wesley Chapel, and it is inconsistent density-wise with what we do. You talked a little bit about the schools. You saw that the capacity was 107 and 104% for the middle and high school. The fact that this is only an 80-20 restricted development means that there are possibly some kids that are going to live in this development. I am 54, so next year I could move into a community like this, and I have a teenage daughter. So to say it's not going to negatively affect the schools, it's not going to affect the schools very much, but it will affect the schools. Dealing specifically with the new access road onto Waxhaw Indian Trail Road, the HOA for Wesley Oaks may have given a preliminary nod to allowing the property, an easement to be sold of their property. But this is not the cart before the horse. This is the cart and the horse is nowhere in sight. This has not been even proposed to Wesley Chapel. This has not been even presented to Wesley Chapel for us to approve or not approve. So I think that's important. I'm not sure, and we just found out about this today, that the HOA has the ability to sell the easement. A lot of times, as you know, as planning board members, you have to leave a certain amount of green space available when a development goes in. You can't say, well, provided they give a 10 or 15% open green space, we'll approve the subdivision. You can't go back 10 or 20 years later and say, well, it's been 20 years, now we can sell it, which is basically what's happening here. And I think the only reason Wesley Oak HOA is allowing this or suggesting this is because 80% of the subdivision is on the other side of Billy Howie Road. It's the people in the estate section that back up that will be directly affected by this, and I doubt that the majority of them would have voted in favor of selling off this land. It's more the people that are going to be affected by the traffic. Before you spoke about passion, that there wasn't a lot of people here. And yes, COVID is going to have some effect on that. But we've already given both the county commissioners and the planning board a resolution that the Village of Wesley Chapel is not in favor of this. We represent over 9,000 residents in Wesley Chapel, so there is still a passion about this. My phone still does ring on a daily basis. It has rung a lot. It's a little quiet around the holidays, but it did ring a lot in the last few days, knowing that this meeting was coming up. So the other point I had here was you were talking about the baby boomers and what's going to happen 20 years from now. I think it's a valid point. If 20 years from now, the baby boomer bubble has popped and this turns into, well, we can't sell our house, well, then all of a sudden the rules are going to have to change. They're going to have to make some kind of concessions, and we may end up with not a senior housing project, but a housing project that's geared towards seniors, but at the same time, there might be some younger families living there. So there is passion here. There is passion from the residents surrounding this property. There is passion on the internet and people that pick up the phone and call me. So it is there. I'm surprised there's not more people here tonight, but there are people that I represent and that David will represent here in a minute that don't want to see this happen. My last point is the plan you have in front of you obviously needs some tweaking. The cul-de-sac has to be a through road. This has to be changed. These lots have to be moved. I don't think the developer has come here tonight with a detailed enough plan for you to move forward on this. So I would recommend either denying the plan or kicking the can down the road and let them come back with a more finished, more detailed plan for you to approve.
Can I ask a favor of you?
Yes, sir.
I know that there was a letter in that last package
Yes, sir.
expressing a lot, but since you're representing the town tonight, could you get something on paper to Lee to go to the commissioners about you speaking tonight?
I believe David is going to cover, David's going to speak to that when he comes up here in just a moment.
Okay.
But this is a majority vote for your,
It's a unanimous vote.
that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
I wanted to be clarified of who you represent.
Village of Wesley Chapel was a unanimous vote to create the resolution and send it to both the planning board and to the county commissioners.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
David Krafthammer?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, planning board members. I'm David Kaphammer. I live at 507 Conaway Court in Waxhaw. I live in the Glen, which is the northern boundary, that community. And a couple items to cover with you on this. So I've been to all of the public meetings. I've been to all of the meetings with the builder, the preliminary meetings with the builder. I've talked to the planning board members. I've talked to the commissioners. I've met with the commissioners offline. And so I want to make sure that you understand that there is a lot of passion behind this project by the members of the community. So the question is, why aren't the two other people that spoke previously, a husband and wife, here that are from Wesley Oaks? And I think that relates to this deal, this arrangement that was made between the HOA and EPCON, and I think it's important that you have a little bit of insight on that. So like I'd mentioned, I live in the Glen, which is 42 homes. It's northern boundary. Wesley Oaks, which is on the other side of Billy Howie, is 300-some homes. We share the same HOA. Our board members all live over in the other community. And apparently there were meetings, I guess. So I've emailed Cooster. Cooster is the community management company that we have. I have many emails with them asking them, tell me about the process for this, for the HOA, on how they make a decision. Because I know something is going to be going on. I've seen pictures on the internet where there's this new picture. Is there some kind of vote? Is somebody going to talk to me about this? I'm an adjoining homeowner. I'm impacted by it. Cooster couldn't articulate to me what their process is for this, right? Do they hold public hearings? Do they meet with the public? It seems that the HOA members, that board from Wesley Oaks, got behind closed doors with EPCON and made some kind of arrangement that this road could now cut through the Glen that I discovered the other day. I don't know where I don't know. I can speculate where it comes from, but that's likely why you're not seeing the folks from Wesley Oaks here. Now, that's just my speculation, but I don't know. But if you read through that agreement, which I did, it has terms in it like you can, and I'm paraphrasing, you can put the road on Waxhaw Indian Trail as long as there's nothing that goes over across Billy Howie, right? So I think that is important insight that you have. It doesn't really matter for the planning board, but it's a dynamic that's going on that's associated with this, that the builder is a part of, that doesn't seem on the up and up to me. Another item for you is, as you already know, this project does not, there's no ordinance in Wesley Chapel for this. Several years ago, the 55-plus ordinance was pulled off the books in Wesley Chapel. EPCON's one of the communities that was approved for it. There are two others. And to your discussion earlier about, or I believe, Mr. Chairman, you asked how many homes have been approved and what's still pending. The three communities that are in Wesley Chapel today still are not done. They were approved circa 2016, 2018 timeframe. The Pinnacle, which is just off Route 84, has 1 or 2 homes built in it, and it was the very first one that was approved. Maybe it has 3. And it was the very first one that was approved, and that's still not done yet. So as far as the demand goes, I mean, I would suspect if the demand is as hot as 7 million homes we're still behind on, I would have thought that those communities would have been finished by now. I also have a question about the numbers, the statistics that were put in front of you, that there's still 20 years worth of demand, consistent and sustainable demand for this type of community. That would mean that the 67-year-old people that are buying these homes today, the average age 67 and 62, are going to be 87 and 82 and still be in the market to buy this kind of home. And none of that math adds up for me. Because, Mr. Thomas, I do have the same concern that you were alluding to, which is what happens when this baby boom falls off the cliff, right? And we get back to what is my generation, which is Gen X. I'm 51, right? And my high school age kids, which I don't know if they could, if I were 55, like Mike was saying, I mean, they could very quickly and very easily become a part of the community. So I don't know where all these homes are going to go. And then lastly, the only other thing that I found was really interesting. So I've spent time driving through a lot of these communities, and I mentioned this to the planning board, and one of the things that I really consistently saw that actually kind of took me by surprise, and this goes to the suggestion about community involvement and being a part of the fabric of the community. This is what I saw. Kentucky, New York, Florida, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Those are just 6 states of the cars that are riddled throughout these communities. So I don't know if that means that they are living someplace else and have a part-time home here and really aren't part of the fabric of our community, or they had just moved here and they haven't transitioned the title of their car yet. I'm I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to mean, but it's so consistent. And all the times that I drive through these communities, it begs me to ask the question, just how much of a part of the fabric of our community are people who actually really don't live here or live here part-time? Okay, I think that's it. I think you can see the passions in my voice that, you know, it really is there, and I represent the folks that are a part of the Glen. So, thank you for your time. So-
What area?
Yeah, so good question, and I'll put a little detail behind that. It's important to get these names straight. I live in a community called the Glen. The Glen is the one that borders the northern edge of this community, of the proposed project. The community across the street is called Wesley Oaks. There is a third neighborhood. So my neighborhood's like 42 homes, right? There's a third community. Wesley Oaks is 300 plus. There's a third community called the Estates, which is, I forget what road it's, but it's like a mile from here, which is also part of our HOA. So it's these three communities that were all kind of jammed together, and all the board members sit on the big community, because that's where the pool is and the playground and all that good stuff. So we don't have the clubhouse or anything like that in our community. We have to go over to their community. So, okay. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Could I address those questions? Because I think I could answer a lot of the questions that he's raised for the board.
I just want to make one quick question before you start. There was a neighborhood meeting on 6/23. Did you know about that?
The Zoom meeting?
June meeting, 6/23, a neighborhood meeting. There was a neighborhood meeting. I've got the notes here of what was discussed and what was asked, questions, et cetera, so forth and so. Did you go to that
There was a
meeting?
neighborhood meeting, I was there.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with exactly, there have been many of them. I'm not sure which one in particular you're referring to.
Don, I believe that's the one that was required for the rezoning process.
Right.
Wasn't the one for the homeowners association.
Oh, okay. I've been to every meeting. EPCON hosted two, and I've been to every meeting that has been associated with this.
I just know we had these notes right here in our package,
Yep.
dated 6/23, and I wanted to find out if you knew about that meeting.
If you can share what it was about, I can probably.
It just says neighborhood meeting, EPCON on Courtyards at Howie Farm. And they've got an attendance sheet here. While he's speaking, I'll look, see if I can find
Okay,
it.
David Caphammer.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir, go ahead.
To try to answer some of the questions there. First and foremost, I think it's important for the board to know that EPCON does take the public comments very seriously, not just the comments that we get from the board or the staff, but from our neighbors. We do want to be good neighbors. That's helpful not just to the existing residents, but to the new residents coming into the community. In regards to the HOA, there have been several meetings, I believe 3.
Yeah, we did a presentation with the board, and that was sent out to the community.
So the discussions with the board have not been behind closed doors or a secret deal.
There's been no community involvement in that, sir.
If I could speak.
You can, but if you're gonna rebut my.
I was gonna ask that question.
I'm gonna ask for the right.
Give us a chance, please, okay?
Yeah, give me a chance to explain, and then
Go ahead.
certainly if you want to comment after that. But I just want the board to know that it has not been just the HOA board members and EPCON meeting in closed session. We've had discussions with the board, and we're going to ask the president of the HOA to come in front of the commission as we move forward, so that they can speak firsthand, rather than taking my word in regards to what meetings took place, or somebody that wasn't at a particular meeting. I think it would be appropriate for the HOA, a member of the HOA board, to speak specifically to that point. But my understanding is there's been at least 3 meetings in which the residents of the community have been invited to discuss and consider the plan. Mike Davis and John Shamp, who worked for EPCON, participated in at least one of those meetings to explain the changes that we've made because of the feedback that we had received related to the plan. The biggest concern was the connectivity or the potential for cut-through traffic along the Billy Howie, which you can see that we've tried to go ahead and address. In regards to the demographics, local versus out of state, historically, we've averaged over 50% local within a 10-mile radius of our communities that want to stay in the communities. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on when we look at these locations. We look at where is the need? Where's 3,500 or more people that are living within a 3-mile radius that want to stay within their community, still go to their favorite restaurant once COVID's released or eased, still be able to go to their favorite shops, doctors, whatever it may be, and enjoy their local community, stay close to their kids, stay close to the grandkids, all those things that this type of community does offer. So we do have over 50% of residents that come from typically the municipality and which we're offering. Now, he did make an accurate statement in regards to currently there's not a zoning within Wesley Chapel that would allow an age-restricted community. We had one approved, the courtyards at Wesley Chapel, which is on Cuthbertson Road, and it has done very well. Last year we sold 44 out of 136 lots. We had 44 sales this past year in that particular community. So we would anticipate that this community would be sold out in about 2 years. So there is a demand for the product, and our product does bring value to the community. And we talked about, again, density. Our product, and one of the reasons why the HOA, which initially there was a lot of passion against the project, they said, look, we don't want all this traffic, we don't want to cut through. And we sat down with the board and said, here are your scenarios. If a developer comes in by right and they build the 45 homes based off of the current zoning, here's the number of people, occupants that you're going to have. Here's the number of traffic trips you're going to have. And the other thing that those traffic counts don't take into account is the 55-plus demographics. Our buyer, again, average age of 67, the majority, over 2/3, are retired. So they're not driving during the peak hours, and that doesn't even show in those statistics. So in our 508 trips, those trips aren't happening during rush hour in the morning and the evenings. That demographic is avoiding those particular times a day. So the reason why the HOA board approached us and said, hey, let's talk about this and see if we can come up with something that works for everybody, is they realize that if we don't move forward with the project, a by right traditional single-family builder is going to build on that site. It's one of the last donut holes within the municipality. It's highly desirable, and if we don't build there, another builder will. And they looked at the options and said, do we want a production builder in there? Do we want a bunch of school-age kids? Right now, historically, less than 3% of our households have a school-age child. And that's typically only if there's extenuating circumstances, medical, or a grandchild or something like that living at the house.
From a transparency standpoint, can you provide Lee for the Board of Commissioners the 3 meeting dates that you had in addition to the 6/23 meeting, if I understand?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll ask the president of the HOA to draft something. Again, that way you're not hearing it from me, third party, because they were the ones that coordinated the meetings. They did ask EPCON to participate in one of those meetings,
You don't know
where
if
we
they
gave
sent
a
out
presentation.
notices to the people, the homeowners, that they were going to have these meetings, correct or wrong?
I'm sorry, say again?
Do you know if the president of the HOA contacted all the residencies to be at these meetings?
We were told that all the residents within the community were notified of the meeting. Not all the residents chose to participate in those meetings.
I can understand that. Lee, I just want to make sure that we get all those dates down and a
Somebody,
list
if
of
we can just get that
attendees, just like
documentation,
we've
what
got
meetings
right
took
here.
place and who was invited.
But that's
Okay? Something's
the,
not-
you said that the president of the HOA, but that's that one big development. What about the other 3 developments?
Well, again, the 3 communities are part of the same HOA. And the residents within the HOA, which would have included the 3 subdivisions within the master HOA, would have been notified by the HOA board, not by EPCON. The HOA said, look, we agree that we'd rather have 89 age-restricted homes across the street from us at an average sales price of $450,000 plus $211 a square foot than a production builder across the street that's going to bring more traffic, more kids, higher impacts to the community. So I'll ask the HOA president to put something together that identifies the dates in which they had the meetings and who they invited to those particular meetings for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
One more question for you. Hang on, I got one more question for you. How far do you have to be built out before this becomes an HOA?
Well, we do it different than most builders. Most builders will not bring any homeowners on the board until they're virtually built out. What we typically do is within the first 10 homes that are built, we bring on our first board member. Within 25% build out, we bring on our second. Within 50% build out, we bring on our third, 75 the fourth, and then 100% the fifth member. And the reason why we do that is so that the homeowners that are going to take over the HOA understand how the HOA is working and operating in regards to the services and costs associated with operating that HOA. So there's
say
a
that again.
transition that
After-
starts at.
How many houses do you have to, before you get your first HOA member?
10 homes.
10 homes.
And we close about 4 a month. So we're talking from the time that we have our first closing, usually within 3 months, we have our first board member. Usually our biggest challenge is not when we're willing to bring on a board member, it's getting a board member to volunteer, their time
And do
to serve on the board.
you have a timeline on when this has to be finished?
No. Again, from historical, we typically average around 4 sales a month and 4 closings a month. So I would anticipate that it will be sold within 2 years, and construction typically will
How long
lag
does it
around
take you to
6
build a
months.
house?
It takes us 4 months to build a house.
4 months?
2 months, for design selections, permitting. So typically, from the time we sell the last house, within 6 months of that, we're closed out. So from the time that we start and have our first closing, I would anticipate that our last closing would happen, just about 2 years after
So
that.
I know there's some HOAs that, once you break ground, you got 18 months to finish.
No, we have no deadlines in our CC&Rs in regards to, the market dictates that, but
But if the HOA comes in, they can stipulate it, can't they?
in regards to when the homeowners take over the board, or?
Well, once you get an HOA in there, they're in charge of it now,
That is
not
correct.
you.
Well, again, we bring the first member on at 10 homes, the second member at 25. What we do is, at that point, we step back and we serve as an advisor. And we allow the homeowners to make the decisions, the day-to-day decisions related to the HOA, because they have to make decisions on the level of services that they want. And it's like anything we all know in our personal house. If you want somebody to cut the lawn instead of you cutting the lawn, it costs you money. So we'll sit down with the board and say, okay, if you want to add these services, here's the cost per unit per month to add those services, and then we let the homeowners on the board make those decisions. The only thing that we do as declarant is make sure that they're not doing something that's in violation of the CC&Rs or bylaws or deed restrictions for the property, and allow us to continue to conduct our business so that we can sell the community out.
So, I live in an HOA, I live in a development that has an HOA. Once you break ground, as soon as that excavator hits the ground, you got 18 months to finish that house. And if it's not done, you start getting fined.
Within, as far as the time frame to build a house from the time you start it? Yes, within our contracts, there's timelines within our contracts that we have to have a house completed. Typically, in North Carolina, the regulation's 2 years from time of contract by law, that you have to have the home completed. Typically, once we have the site development done, the first buyers who buy while we're doing site development, it may be a year before they're in the house. But once the site development's done and we're selling a house, then those closings typically happen about 4 months after the date of sale, or 6 months after, because it takes us 2 months to finalize selections and then 4 months to build the house.
Are you going to have model houses on this to start with?
Yes, we always have a model home. Yep, and there'll be an amenity center with exercise, swimming pool. That's traditional with our communities.
Okay?
Sorry, as far as the board goes, you said there's 5 members total?
Yes, well, the HOA, the CCNRs require a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5.
Okay, so would you bring them on, do they each, say you have 5, do they each have a true 20% say in any vote?
Yes,
So when you bring one on, you'd have one community member with 20% and you guys have 80%? And then it
no,
changes?
no, we abstain from voting.
You abstain from voting even after the first one?
That's correct. As soon as we have the first member on board, EPCON, we serve as an advisor and a consultant. So unless they're doing something that's in violation of the CCNRs or bylaws, we let the board make those decisions.
Well, that
So
brings me to the
if
next.
we have 2 people on the board or 3 people on the board, whatever that is, we would allow them to make the decisions. Now, obviously, you want to get to the point where you have an odd number so that you don't have a tie. So if we had 2 homeowners on the board and they couldn't agree on something, then we may vote to break a tie or ask them to defer that decision until there's a 3rd member on the board.
Well, you mentioned the bylaws and adhering to the CCNRs. In my experience with HOAs, there are provisions to change those. The HOA can change those with a certain vote of a percentage of the residents.
Within our CCNRs and bylaws, it takes a vote of 85% of the residents to amend and change CCRs
So
or
is that 80% of the
bylaws.
lots, or is that 80% of the residents that currently live there?
It's a
What
vote
I'm
of
getting at is-
85% of the lots.
Because you can
Now-
have a situation where you have one board member, you have 10 houses, and then 10 members could vote to change the CCNRs and everything's off the books.
Well, that's why we stay on the board as the advisor, because as I said, if they're going to do something that adversely affects the CCNRs or bylaws, then at that point, we would, step in and say, no, we're not going to allow that particular change to
So that's more
occur.
than an advisory role.
Well, there's a difference in advising under the current rules. What you're saying is if somebody's trying to change the rules. As
Just
Declan,
asking, would they have the ability to, if they truly are in charge of the HOA? It sounds like they're not truly in charge of the HOA.
But isn't that what they
Well,
have a management company for?
well, there's 2 different aspects here. There's managing the day-to-day operation of the HOA, which we give the homeowners the ability to manage the day-to-day. What you're saying is a different circumstance in regards to modifying and changing the CCNRs. When we're selling houses, it's not just the people that are living there, but we've already represented what the current rules and regulations are for the community. When we first submit our plans, we submit a copy of our CCNRs and our bylaws. So we're making a commitment at the time that we sell those houses, here's the current rules and regulations. So we're not going to allow the board to make changes to those rules and regulations until such time that the community has a majority or is nearly closed out. But the day-to-day operations, whether or not they want to cut the grass twice a week or whether they want to cut it twice a month, those decisions we leave up to the homeowners that are on the board. Does that clarify that for you?
It does, thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
I know this is relevant, but can we not move on?
that's what I'm getting ready to say.
I don't know
We're,
if this has anything to do with the merits of deciding.
That's absolutely
or not
right.
deciding.
you're correct. We need to move on, and you were at the 23rd meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, you were there.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, you know, just
Verified.
as the point
Okay.
of clarity, sir.
We got to move on. We're gonna be here at 11 o'clock.
All right, well, I have in writing from my property management company that my HOA does not have to inform the community to meet with builders and make decisions and vote and sell the easement rights.
Okay. At this time, David Boyce.
I'm David Boyce, live at 6001 Spence Court in Monroe, North Carolina, resident of Wesley Chapel, and also a council member of Wesley Chapel. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members, for allowing me to speak. Having been a long-time planning board member of Wesley Chapel, I appreciate your efforts and appreciate what you do. A lot of what I'm going to speak to are thoughts that have been shared with me by our mayor, and she apologizes for not being here tonight. She's got 2 children with strep, and hoping that's all that it is. This development is a true donut hole of unincorporated property within our borders, within Wesley Chapel borders. As Councilman Como said, the village council has unanimously passed a resolution opposing this development, citing the reasons of increased traffic, failing infrastructure, and stormwater problems. If it pleases the board, I've got a copy of the resolution that I'll pass around and you guys can review.
Where you saw these.
Again, this is going to summarize a lot of what Councilman Como and Mr. Camphammer has already said. But in a lot of the meetings that we're a part of with county commissioners, with planning staff, with others of that level, we've been asked not to say, no, we don't want this, but instead say, no, we don't want this because this is what we have planned for that area and also the surrounding areas. At this point, if it pleases the board, I'd like to just read comments from Acting Mayor Fuller. Wesley Chapel does not want high-density development within this donut hole of unincorporated land because we've planned low-density residential zoning for this specific area. We have a future land use map and plan that clearly shows all land in this area would be developed R40, or roughly 1 house per acre. Wesley Chapel strives to approve low-density residential to encourage a healthy rural environment for the residents, and this future land use map and plan will be incorporated into our new comprehensive plan. The proposed Howie Farms development is surrounded by several subdivisions, as Lee spoke to, that were approved under county zoning and have since been annexed into the village. As he spoke to, the Wesley Oaks development was approved under the county smart growth zoning program that allowed developers to shrink the lot size and receive density bonuses for providing certain community amenities. Since then, the county has stopped allowing this zoning program. Under the current zoning request, EPCON is requesting 89 houses on 45 acres, which is roughly 1.98 units per acre. Under Wesley Chapel zoning ordinances, we require that developers subtract buffers, common areas, roads, stormwater ponds, floodplains, lakes and ponds, wetlands, streams, stream buffers, and tree retention area. If these areas, if roads, streams, and stormwater areas were removed, that would be a total of 10 acres that would be removed from this overall development that would put a yield of about 35 acres or 35 homes. If we also took out the yield under the current Wesley Chapel tree retention ordinance, that would pull out another 23 acres that would result in 22 acres or 22 homes. Again, this is a donut hole, and this is surrounded by all areas of Wesley Chapel. So certainly, 35 houses or 22 houses are way below the proposed 89 houses on this property. Wesley Chapel is asking that you guys deny this rezoning request because it is not aligned with our future land use development plans for low-density residential subdivisions that encourage a healthy and rural environment for our residents. We already have failing roads. The highway that the proposed entrance will be a part of now suffered a fatality of a fireman several years back. There was no less traffic on Waxhaw Indian Trail Highway than there is on Billy Howery Road. We have problems with traffic. We have problems with failing roads. We have problems with stormwater. Let's not make it worse. Thank you for your time.
By the way, this letter that you have right here, that was given to us in the June package with signatures. Let's put that for this to go to the commissioners.
Yes.
And
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think the mayor said that it would reduce y'all's standard of living. Could you elaborate on that?
One of the three principles, whenever our village was incorporated back in 98, was to maintain a rural atmosphere. In addition to that, to monitor growth and to keep taxes at a low level. That's one of our three principles, is to maintain that rural atmosphere. In our opinion, putting this many houses on that small of a piece of property does not encourage a rural atmosphere.
And this has nothing to do with a 55 or older development. It just has to do with the density.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. That concludes our speakers. At this time, I'd like to have our planning director, Lee Jensen, come back up with any final comments, and then if you can go back over those three options that we've got.
Sure. I don't have any closing comments unless there's any further questions or clarifications you need from staff. The three options you kind of have tonight, of course, you could recommend to approve it with the conditions or other conditions. You could recommend to deny it, or you could ask the applicant to do some further homework. Again, I think a couple things were mentioned about the site plan. Mr. Harrison, I believe it was you that brought up the issue with the road going through some of the lots and the relocations. That's kind of one of the cleanup issues I was referring to during my staff report. So you could ask, or that leads into asking the applicant to possibly come back to another meeting to do some cleanup. So those are kind of your three options: is approve it with conditions, deny it, or table it for further action by the applicant.
Okay. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. Okay, at this juncture of the discussion, we're going to close the comments for the public, and the planning board will discuss this request. So do we have any discussion amongst the board here that we haven't already discussed?
Could I ask Lee one more question?
Yes, sir, you sure can.
Lee, I know this is very simple-minded, but why can't the county or village of West Chapel work something out where they could have that land? I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but to me, as a simple person, that seems to be a very fair thought.
That is one of the recommendations that will possibly be coming to the planning board as part of the Union County, the comprehensive plan update. I am going to give a short update. I know it's getting late in the hour, but I do want to give a short update after this regarding that comp plan and where we are. But that is something that has been discussed in donut holes to, there's a number of ways you can do it. We haven't identified the exact way to do it, but to come up with a collaborative approach to regulate those areas, whether that's a joint planning or whether it's ETJ, or there's a number of ways you could do it, and that's, like I said, that's not been identified, but we have, that has been a big discussion as part of the 2050 plan.
I'm going to agree with that 100%.
That's a very good question, Everett. Thanks for asking that. Okay. Patrick, any comments? Charlie, any comments?
I'm concerned it's not fleshed out a little bit more. I know where they want to put the other lots that are going to be displaced by the new entrance that they've got. I know generally where they want to put it. I can see it here on this map, but I prefer that they actually be shown. And it's not in Wesley Chapel. It may be a donut hole, but it's Union County's right to have the zoning
Thank you, Charlie. Jonathan?
Yeah, you know, you go back to the previous vote where we denied this 4-2. The overwhelming concern was that it was non-conforming with the surrounding area. We're still talking 1.97 or 1.98, depending on the source, versus an average of roughly 1.25 houses per acre. Again, roads and infrastructure, you've got inventory out there that is approved but not built. What Mr. Jensen was alluding to is the 2050 board, and Mr. Midland made that comment as well, as far as finding a way to potentially give the local jurisdiction more authority on these items that are donut holes or in their backyard. And to that end, I do feel as though their input should be weighed a little heavier, because the 2050 board not only is comprised of citizens, but there are surveys that are periodically throughout the year conducted, and overwhelmingly the top two items are development and traffic. Too much development, unrestricted it seems, and too much traffic, and this is not going to help that. Speaking of cost by, or the by right zoning, yes, you could do R40. Yes, you could have more school kids, potentially higher traffic count. That's all dependent on how you read the numbers. But I'm not an economics major. I know that if you're going to sell less product and you want to maintain a certain margin, you're going to have to sell it for a higher price. So I don't see that you're going to be losing out and seeing low income housing in that area. That would be a detriment to the county if it defaulted to the zoning that's currently there. And to that point, the more that we put high density residential, the more we become a suburb of Charlotte. And we're going to be Mecklenburg County 2.0. What we need here is more commercial, industrial. We need more jobs. And by continuing to approve high density, and I don't think anyone here is arguing senior housing as being a problem. I do see the need for it. But to that end, the high density is choking this county, and it's not going to fix the problem. Now, I know taxes are not going up, but what is going to occur this year, and it's going to be a sticker shock to many of us, is the valuation of properties will change, and that's a tax increase without being a tax increase, and that's how you pay for the schools. That's how you pay for the roads. That's how you pay for everything. So that is coming. The final concern that I have is regarding the easement onto Wax Landing Trail Road. NCDOT has indicated they may approve it. Remains to be seen. Wesley Oaks HOA has theoretically approved it. I haven't seen anything in writing. I'll take their word for it. What I will say is, based on the comments of the citizens, there is a potential for a lawsuit within the HOA, because they may not have the authority to grant the easement that they did grant. They may not have notified people. So again, we're putting the cart before the horse. That's not my problem. I'm not an attorney, but I do see that as being a potential problem. And then you get into, since Wesley Chapel is adamantly against this, would they grant the easement? Would they grant this request in the first place? And can they? Can they do that and still, in Wesley Oaks, still be in conformance with existing zoning? So at this point, I do think we're putting the cart before the horse, and I think this is more or less a Hail Mary pass. We don't have a document that clearly depicts everything. There's a lot of questions here, and I think it's a last-ditch effort. It doesn't look like it's final to me, and it doesn't look well prepared. That's my 2 cents.
Louis?
I have 2 points. One that was getting to be a lot of people were concerned about the property and the change of age and that sort of thing and what's going to happen to it. And it brought me to a profound time in my life. I started going to People's Republic of China right after Mao died. He'd just gotten through doing his 5-year plans where millions of people died of starvation. And I went over there and they had just started the one-child policy because the population was too dense. And not only me, but many said, oh my God, as time goes by, you have a bunch of old people who can't take care of themselves, got to be fed, and so few young people to feed them. And oh God, it'll be another like a 5-year plan, tens of thousands, millions of people are dying. Well, guess what? We're dead wrong. Look at those suckers are competitors now. They're about to try to take over our country. They're so strong. So I say to you, when we're talking about what's gonna happen 20 years down the road, none of us know what we're talking about. So I would say it very well might be a problem, and it may be absolutely nothing, and not a person sitting in this room has the ability and the knowledge to know for sure one way or the other. So I would drop that out of the equation, because we're not that smart, okay? But the second thing is, I have a concern about meeting the standards of the community in density. I know, you know, Weather Chapel and Weddington, they're high-end places, they have spacious areas. I happen to live on almost an acre of land myself, I kinda like it myself. But, and this does not meet that standard. On one side, you look and say, well, yeah, but you're not in a city. And on the other hand, you say, well, yeah, but the city is part of the county and it's right next door, and it's not to be in harmony. So this is a toss-up as I see it. But the other part, the use of the property, I wouldn't even think about that one way or the other. We have to decide as to whether we want to put that high density up there, and, you know, it's gonna make the people of Weather Chapel really upset, I understand that. And also, it's gonna be more residential, and I'm with Jonathan, he and I have discussed this many times, that, you know, if we keep building houses, then we are gonna be a subdivision of Charlotte. Now, I moved to Charlotte in 1970, and then I moved to Union County in Stallings in 1999, and 2 years ago, I moved over here, because I want to get away from the city. I do not want to be part of that city. I want to be part of a different kind of community rather than a big, huge city. If we keep doing like we do it here, we are going to lose the identity of Union County, and we're going to be a suburb for people to go commute back to and from back to Charlotte. And there's the saying that we had where I come from, or what you do here, but your sleeping is one of them, and so we all know. And if people don't care about this place, you know, they come, yeah, I got a nice house, and go to the city and then spend my life there and spend my money there. So the rest of us poor guys who are not part of the suburban Charlotte community, we starving because we can't get any resources. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. I'm also concerned about the density and concerned about the transportation, but I also know that there's a need for this 55, but I just don't know if this is the place for it. So that's the way I feel. This time I'd like to, if there's no more discussion amongst us.
Sir, I'd like to say that, again, don't get me wrong, I don't think we can discuss about future population, because last year at this time, I had no idea what COVID-19 was, okay? So I think that, you know, that the balls of nature will play out as far as what our population will be and all. But I also, there's undoubtedly a marketplace for this sort of development. And I'm going to say this very bluntly, we have shown a real bias on this board against age-restricted development. And we have, and y'all all know it, because we've all voted against it. And that bothers me, because when you get my age, you don't want an acre lot. You want to live on something that's maintained for you, and you will live with the grandkids, like Louis was saying. And you want to be here, and you don't want to maintain that lot. There's a marketplace for this sort of thing. Is this the right place? Decision that we all have to make here. But I feel like we've been biased against older folks. That's what I feel like. And these age restricted. Hey, and it's their money. They want to risk it. That's their problem.
Your opinion is always respected as a former chair, Everett, so I don't think any of us took offense to your comment or anything like that. We took it to heart. So at this time, if there's not any more questions or comments from this group, we've been given 3 opportunities by Lee. Do we have a motion on any of them? For or against, et cetera?
Do
Oh.
you guys want to see a final presentation of the, as far as the interest and where they're going to replace the other lots at? Do y'all want to see that before we make the final vote? I know Charlie mentioned that.
I'd like to table.
You want more information?
Yeah, I don't know whether this HOA can give them that easement right now. That's something to make a decision on.
Do you feel as though that can, all your concerns can be addressed within the 45-day window, Mr. Jensen?
The lawyers out there.
And for that, I propose we deny and let them take some time to get everything in order. I just don't think 45 days is going to fix these glaring issues. And beyond that, my concern is the overall density being non-conforming to this degree.
I think that you're probably right, but if the motion is out there by Jonathan, do we have a second? Second? Okay. All vote, pardon me, all in favor of the denial motion per the 45-day not being achievable, raise your right hand.
Could you restate that, please, sir?
A motion?
This is a total denial, right?
No, it's,
Total denial, no 45-day waiting period.
Correct. I don't think that we have,
we can't get it done in 45
we
days.
either deny, approve, or defer, and we would have 45 days to defer for them to get the responses. And I don't feel like that's going to be reasonable to cover the plethora of issues that are outstanding.
And you would, just a point of clarification, you really have about 30 days to get the information back, because 45 days would fall in kind of the middle of the month, so they would be scheduled for the next planning board meeting. There would be no way to get another planning board meeting sort of in between, so it's really more like 30 days.
So basically, it'd come up the next
I
meeting.
might have misunderstood you. I thought you wanted to give them time to get this
No,
stuff
sir,
back.
I'm motioning for a full denial because I don't feel as though it can be done within the time frame, and we just kick it down the road and come back with more unanswered questions.
That's what I was going to clarify.
Thank you.
because I thought this was part of Charlie's suggestion that we have it brought back to us, but this is a total flat denial altogether.
That's your motion to deny.
That is my motion, sir.
Okay. All those in favor of a full denial, raise your right hand. It's a tie. 3-3.
Did you raise your hand?
Would you, yeah, would everybody, raise your hand again if you?
All those in favor of the denial, raise your hand.
It's four.
It's 4-3. I'm just
4-2.
counting. Okay, 4-2. Okay, that's where we're at. With that, thank everybody for being here and those that spoke.
I know, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, you're probably still going through the agenda. Are you ready for me to?
Ready for you.
I know everybody's probably ready to go home. I will, 3 minutes, is that what I get? Okay. I want to give you a brief update on the 2050 plan and the process. We had our initial comment period. It was open from November 24th, so right before Thanksgiving, to December 18th, so right before Christmas. We reached out, you're making me nervous. We reached out on Facebook, the county's website, the employee newsletter, and emails to HOAs and interested residents. We also did some in-person outreach, which included some municipal presentations, 4 in-person meetings, and 2 municipal drop-in meetings. Those municipal drop-ins were virtual. Had 300 views of our video, over 1,000 visitors to the plan website, 40 attendees at the in-person or online input sessions, and 98 completed surveys. I will in the interest of time, skip over some of the demographic information. As Jonathan alluded to a little bit earlier, we asked, one of the questions we asked was what is the most important issue to address? Number one is high density, number two is road congestion. And then you have green space and preserving the status quo was number four. But I will say that 1 and 2 were by far the most commented issue that the county needed to address. So the verbal comments we got, I'll break those down into kind of 4 categories. The first one here, we got a lot of comments on this one from the Sandy Ridge area, which was there's a proposed quarter-cent sales tax to help fund transportation projects. And I think when most of the coordinating committees, well, not just the coordinating committee, but all the committees were thinking through this, they thought, well, we're thinking about roads. So we got a question, what does the proposed quarter-cent sales tax, can that be used to help pay for public transportation projects, such as the proposed light rail for Mecklenburg County and the Stallings and Indian Trail? So we never brought that to the coordinating committee's attention. Honestly, we didn't think about it. We thought about roads and relieving road congestion. So the coordinating committee's response, they did not support that proposal. They felt that light rail didn't have enough details on the budget. They didn't necessarily rule it out 100%. They just said, we don't know what this light rail is going to cost. We know that the Blue Line extension going up to the university was very expensive, but we haven't seen any cost proposals for the Silver Line coming out of Mecklenburg County. So at this point in time, they said we're not going to support using, if the quarter-cent sales tax were to pass, they would not support using that money for the Silver Line extension into Union County. Next was talking about the transition zones. Everett, this is what you were sort of referring to about these donut holes to take in all land between municipalities in Western Union County. Coordinating committee's response, they did support some expansion of those transition zones and lower density away from primary roads. But they didn't necessarily support all land use decisions, being transferred to the towns. They looked at it on a, really want to more dig into where some of those donut holes are, what that means, where some of those high capacity roads are going to be. So they did leave it open to expanding what that definition of a transition zone.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
How could they transfer it, though, if you have a donut hole, but you got like Stallings and Indian Trail and Wesley Chapel all around? It's
Sure.
not just one town. I could understand if it was one town.
Right.
If you have multiple towns, how are you going to do that?
That's
It would be so interesting. It would be a whole lot like the national election.
I think they're doing a game of spin the bottle.
Really?
That's a very good question, and we have kind of talked about it, there's, and I don't have the map of the transition zones, but if you'll recall from some previous updates, there is a transition zone that's kind of north of Wesley Chapel, but it's bounded on the south by Wesley Chapel, on the kind of the northwest by Stallings, and the northeast by Indian Trail. And the idea there is you could do some joint planning, because
Split it.
and those 3 municipalities have vastly different ideas about what should happen in those areas. Wesley Chapel is very low density. Stallings and Indian Trail would support a little bit higher density. So the idea there is to, in that particular instance, is to sit down at the table, all 4 parties, and come up with a solution that benefits everyone. That's a lot easier said than done, but that's the idea.
I mean, would they,
What town council's good luck.
would they split it, would they split the land up like a
Yeah,
pie?
out there, spin them
Each of
all.
them take a certain section of the land or something, or?
It could be. I mean, what's,
Because you've got so many different landowners. The landowners gonna have to have a say-so in this.
Oh, they're going to
that's,
lawsuit.
yeah, and that's true.
Involuntary annexation.
And what comes out of these, the comprehensive plan are ideas. So it's not that these transition zones, it's not that each one of them has to be the exact same thing. It's just the idea that there should be better municipal and county planning and land use coordination in these areas. And how that's achieved, if the plan's adopted, that's when you get to the, because there's lots of ideas that come out of the plan. It's not just transition zones. There's the quarter-cent sales tax. There's well testing. So once those ideas, if those ideas are adopted as part of the plan, then the next step is, okay, we're going to prioritize and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty and the details of working out how these need to be done. And that's going to involve, again, you're right, not just the towns and county staff, but the planning boards of those staff, the landowners that live in those areas, other parties that have interest. I mean, I know one of them is stormwater, so that's going to involve landowners, that's going to involve the commercial developers, the residential developers, because everybody needs to at least have their voice heard. Maybe not everybody gets exactly what they want, but everybody needs to have a seat at the table and to have their voice heard. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no.
Okay.
No, I was just,
Landowner will sue the hell out of you, is what it is.
well, that's the thing, I mean, if it's multiple landowners, but something like this, I mean, it's just this one property.
Sure.
It's owned by, I guess, one person sold it.
Right.
Or wants to sell it to developers. So something like that, if something like that came up and it was bordered by 3 or 4 different towns, you're not gonna have all that lawsuits and everything. You have this one person that wants to get rid of it.
Yeah, and
you
in a
got-
situation like
I
that,
mean, I can understand it, the other way around, but
You got to look at it this way, that the landowner is not going to want to be annexed into the town of West County. Or whether, because they have just reduced the value of their land. Because they can't sell it up for RA40. And those landowners are gonna fight like hell to keep from getting into very restricted communities, and that's what you got
And
into.
if that landowner, that one we were just talking about there, he could sell it right now with R40.
and
I'd give him about 7 or 8 more home sites on there at about $100,000 apiece.
and that is the idea behind.
He's gonna be having plenty of room to sue.
And that is the idea behind they call them transition zones because it's not necessarily saying that the town that surrounds it necessarily, gets ETJ or gets to annex it. It's just the county is not going to, in those transition zones, the county would not recommend any, so I wouldn't stand up here and say, this development plan is consistent with a higher density than R40. If it was R40, the idea would be to keep it there. If they wanted something higher, then they needed to approach, the town that was next door to try to annex in. Now, again, there are areas that have 2, 3, 4, maybe, there might be areas that have more towns that are completely surrounded by a donut hole. In this particular instance, the one we just heard, it was one. But there are large donut holes that have 3 areas that are surrounded. And that's really, you do have to sit down at the table with all those parties involved and kind of hash it out. But if they wanted to develop it, if the property owner or developer wanted to come in and develop it as R40, that's fine. We would process that. They could go through the county, build a subdivision all day long. But it's just on a rezoning request, the county would not recommend any upzonings in those areas.
So EPCON went to Wesley Chapel and told them what they were proposing to do.
Right.
And Wesley Chapel told them that they didn't,
Yeah, so,
they didn't approve it, but it didn't matter because it's not in Wesley Chapel. It's,
right, so likely in that scenario, what would happen is they would develop R40 in the county.
And like Charlie was saying, you're gonna go from putting 1 kid per household, you're gonna put 45, 47 houses in there, and you're gonna send 100 kids to elementary school and high school.
Yeah, Lee, I have a thought, but I don't know if it's doable or not, but, I've been on boards a few times, and every time there's county land next to the city's going nuts out of their mind because of what's being done to it. However, the city didn't give squat to that land until something happened with it. I would say if the county thought about this a little bit and said, hey, well, now, of course, Wesley Chapel, they have no police force, but like Wingate had their own police force. And they probably have their own garbage as well. Well, you say, hey, if you're living out in the county, we'll come patrol this because we have cops right here, and you have twice the police protection. And so if you do that, we'll give you a little more oomph when it comes down to making things go. In other words, when I sit in the school and I see a city coming, y'all know about it, it's terrible about city. It's not your city, brother. This is county land. You ain't gonna squat for these people yet. You know, and now you say, well, I don't want neighbors who are gonna live like that. If you don't want that, how about you do something for that land that says periphery? Somehow or the other, there's gotta be stuff that can be done. And say, and based upon what you're prepared to do for the periphery land around your city is the amount of consideration you shall get when and if somebody wants to develop it.
Well,
No, it's like the old
I
saying,
have resentment toward towns that did not use, procedures to annex when they could, and in the state legislature took away that privilege because they could provide services rendered to these people to justify involuntarily annexing. Wesley Chapel had all the opportunity in the world to annex this property, this donut hole, and they chose not to.
Yep.
But they could not provide services at that point in time, and the landowner didn't want to annex.
Well, if you can't provide services, then you don't really have enough room to
Exactly
save them one way or the other.
So it's, it's a consequence of their actions as of now. And we're having to pay the price of division and discussion. We're having to pay the consequences for their sin, from being as blunt as I can be. Sorry.
There you're fine.
I have
So-
a point blank way in my old age explaining.
it's that old saying, you know, if you like what you see and you don't want to change, buy it.
Yeah, heard that before.
So, I mean, if Wesley Chapel didn't want it, you know, high density, they should have bought it from the guy who was ever selling it.
Be sure and buy the view too. If you buy a place for the view, be sure and buy the view too.
So I'll move on. The next public comment we got was to enact a policy to deny rezonings that add traffic until funded road projects are completed. And I know that's been a discussion topic on this board before. Got a lot of road projects out there that are funded, but there's no money to fund it. The coordinating committee did like the idea of this proposal, and we're sort of exploring that. We need to make sure that you know, there's legal backing to do something like that. But we are exploring that because the coordinating committee did like it.
Well, that's a slippery slope too,
Yeah.
because I think we could agree things like office, they'll bring, office and industrial that would bring jobs to the area would be great.
Right.
But you can make the argument it adds traffic.
Yep.
At the same time, you can make the argument that's traffic that's going out east versus going west into Charlotte. So
Yeah,
that's a tricky one.
Yeah, you're right, it is, and that we've sort of had that discussion as well. Another public comment was to eliminate all multifamily land uses from the land use map in western Union County. There were, again, that mixed residential was pulled back quite a bit from western Union County. There were two little pods that were left, one at Newtown and 16 and another one down at Kensington and 16. So we had a lot of residents in the Sandy Ridge Township that felt that high-density designation was incompatible with that current development pattern. And I think for the most part, they were talking about 16 in Newtown. We did get some comments from the town of Waxhaw specifically about 16 in Cuthbertson/Kensington, that they didn't mind the density there, but they would like to see it be more mixed use, so incorporating some commercial and industrial development. So the response that the coordinating committee gave was that they felt that the new land use map already significantly reduces the amount of land for higher density in the western part of the county, and that these were limited intersections along current or future multi-lane roads, and that, again, going back to that last comment about road widenings, that such development wouldn't be supported until the road widenings are complete. We were asked to go to, there is a new group, Western Union Municipal Alliance. We were asked to go and meet with some representatives of WUMA. And we've got a comment from them that possibly it might be a good idea to extend the comment period. We did present that to the coordinating committee, and the coordinating committee agreed. So that comment period has been extended to January 15th. Not doing any more additional in-person meetings. A lot of people, COVID has spiked. We are getting a lot of feedback that people are afraid to come to in-person meetings. And then, even, I'll be honest with you, even our electronic meetings during the public comment period were not very well attended. I know, Jonathan, I believe you attended one of those, but they were not very well attended by the by folks. The comment form was revised to include those committee responses and previous feedback. It may delay the result. It may result in a delay of the plan adoption by the coordinating committee in February. We were on track to hit January, but I think that's a good thing. We got a lot of feedback from folks that said some of our issues aren't addressed. A lot of them are, but density is key, and a lot of folks still said they had some concerns about density. So reopening that comment period and maybe making some tweaks to the plan to try to address some of those issues, I think the coordinating committee felt was a good idea. That's it. We just had some little maps in there about sewer area, so.
17 minutes, not bad.
17 minutes, okay, sorry about that. But that's where we are in the comp plan process. Again, it got delayed by about a month, we think. We are getting responses back to the reopened survey. Again, I think it's open for about 10 more days. So please, if you share that link with your Facebook contacts and whatever social media or mail or whatever, we would really appreciate that. And we hope to, if the coordinating committee adopts that in February, we hope to start bringing that to the planning board maybe around April. But we'll probably, once it's getting close to adoption, once we think the coordinating committee is going to, once it's calendared for them to vote on, we'll start setting up 2-on-1s with the planning board to kind of go through what's being talked about. Because it's kind of hard to go in a deep dive during these short presentations, even though I take 17 minutes. If I have any questions.
Any other comments for Lee?
I've got one comment. Why yourself in a gray suit? You look like a hotshot executive with that suit, man.
Can't hide money.
We don't know about it, but you look pretty good.
I'll be honest with you. The main reason I usually don't. Sometimes I'll wear a jacket to these. I don't usually wear a tie. The only reason I did is because my kids bought me. I like Star Wars, and they bought me a Star Wars tie. So I told them that I was going to wear this to the meeting. That way they could watch their dad on television wearing their tie. So now I got to say it. So
Awesome.
Oh, I thought,
Nice tie.
I thought you,
appreciate it.
I thought you were wearing your lunch and you were trying to hide it.
Oh no.
Okay, guys, any other comments? Patrick?
I'm good.
Everett? Charlie?
Let's go home.
I have one comment to make real quick, we're going to dismiss. Tonight, I kind of let this meeting get out of hand, and I want to apologize to y'all. Everett, thanks for your comment.
I didn't mean to say it, but we got into a discussion.
We got,
on
absolutely,
validity of
it's
age
totally
of
off base,
not for-
and I should have shut it down a lot earlier. In fact, that Cuomo back in the back, he was trying to get in after Lee made his closing comments, and I totally ignored him. And I wasn't gonna let Krafthammer go any further than what he was going, because they've got a problem. If they've got 10 board members and all 10 of them are out of one subdivision instead of split it up out of 3 subdivisions, I can see why there's mass confusion. And
We
that,
also didn't time the comments.
pardon?
We didn't time.
I know it, that's my fault. That's why I say I apologize to you guys. I will not let it happen again, hopefully. Y'all will be dismissed at 9:22. Thank you very much for your time coming out tonight. Be safe going home, and